Matariki, significance, and how should we approach it?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to put it on the table. I love Matariki, and I know that there are probably some Christians manifesting as I say that. And
Salah literally just spat out his own tea on his hand.
And can I say I understand that with the way that Matariki is celebrated amongst Māori. I can understand that there are some Christians going, look, there's some stuff going on there that I disagree with. And if you're framing of the idea of other beliefs in various gods and ways of doing spirituality is rooted in the Old Testament, you're probably going to start talking about needing to tear down the idols and all that sort of stuff. We don't live in Old Testament Israel. Let's just put that on the table. The New Testament framing of this sort of thing should shape us more in how we engage. I'm a massive fan of Paul in Athens. So go to Acts 17. I just encourage people to go to Acts 17 and see how Paul engages with a culture that's very different from his own. So Paul turns up at Athens. He goes to the marketplace. They love discussing different philosophies and ideas in the marketplace. So he throws his beliefs in Jesus on the table. And then they want to hear more. So they take him to the Areopagus, which is like this massive hill in Athens where the kind of leading council would gather. And he kind of gets put on trial. But before he goes and talks at the Areopagus, he goes around Athens and he has a look around Athens. Now, Athens at the time, we would have discussed this before, he would have seen a bunch of stuff that would have been really offensive to him as a Jewish man. He would have seen animal sacrifice. He would have seen temple prostitution. He would have seen worship and stuff going on that he would have just found, I would imagine, a real struggle. When he turns up at the Areopagus, he does not condemn them for it. He says, look, I've had a look around your city and I see that you're very religious people. And you have the statue to the unknown God. I want to tell you about that God. And then he relates his faith to that. He finds a space that is somewhat of a commonality, and he uses their poets to quote. So scripture, things that we just kind of take for granted now, he's quoting Athenian poets. Things like, in him we live and move and have our being, is not initially a Christian or a Jewish scripture. It's Athenian poetry talking about something quite different. So he finds this space of commonality, and it's there he moves into. Then there's other places where he talks about what you should do with food sacrificed to idols. And he says, look, if your conscience creates a real problem for you here, don't do it. But it's not a big deal. So when we come to something like Matariki as Christians who do not live in ancient Israel with a mandate that they had, but we live in a secular society that has a diversity of way of seeing things, I think there's a challenge for us to go, okay, what is here that we could agree with? What is here that we could draw on and find that space of commonality? You're probably not going to sacrifice or offer food to the stars of Matariki. But there's stuff here that we could go, yeah, look, that's really valuable. So the traditions of things like looking back on the past year, honouring those who have passed away, gathering in food, eating together, talking about what we're grateful for, imagining the future, those are all things that we can participate and celebrate in and are good.
Well said.
We had Pio today on the show yesterday, and
good man. He's a good man.
He was talking about Matariki and what he's doing, and he had some challenges for the listeners. But one thing we talked about with him off air, actually, after we'd sort of finished up, and was that it's a real chance for people to create new traditions.
Yes.
You know, because it's relatively new in the last few years of having this as a public holiday and being a more mainstream thing. I think a lot of people still maybe have quite a lack of understanding around it, or there's a lot more to learn, right? But it creates an opportunity for new sort of rhythms or exactly that, traditions of how you want to mark that or what you might do with this new long weekend that you didn't have before in the middle of winter. What are you going to be doing, Frank? You got anything that you're sort of like locked in that you're like, oh, we tend to do this, or you're still figuring that out? Or?
Well, Matariki sits at about the same time that we would do a midwinter Christmas.
Yeah.
So for us, there's a tradition that we have where we invite people into our home for a big, long reading session. Nobody's actually supposed to talk to each other until we eat and gather around food. Everybody just kind of finds their place in our house.
Sounds like a great party.
And reads. And then we gather around food and we talk around food. But I see it as a great time of year to lean into those ideas of just thinking about the year that has been. And if there is anybody who has passed away in the last year, to spend some time thinking about them and honouring their memory, and then looking ahead towards the future. Those traditions are great. There is no reason for us to go, oh no, I'm not going to engage at all in any of that, simply because we disagree with one part of the spirituality associated with it.